that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Energy Week with George Harvey and the astonishing Tom Fennell.
In the flesh.
Tom, by the way, reads all the stories that I post for this, and he takes notes on them and knows all kinds of things. And if he looks like a deer in the headlights, it's because he's doing the engineering while we're talking. So
yeah, I'm looking at one of the monitors or something.
looking at the monitors, trying to control a mouse when the mouse will jump from one monitor to another. It's all very fun. Anyway,
Let's see what I look like. Hi there, folks.
Every day I go to the internet and I find whatever I can in terms of news for energy and climate change, and I put together 15 items, each with a synopsis and a link to the original article. Put them all together and package them up for a blog post. That's what I do. I put up my 2,750th blog post at that blog today. Every day, actually it wasn't the 2,750th, it was the 2,751st, because the day that Entergy said they were going to close down Vermont Yankee, I put up 2 posts.
Put up 2, okay.
Yeah. But every other day, that is to say every day, aside from that, I put up a post and we talk about the best material from the blog. And today is the 12th of December, so we're going to start with December 5th, and we will try to keep you apprised of what day these things come from. And you can go to the blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, and click on the calendar date for the date that we say, and you can find the...
There's some good stuff on some of these links.
Some of the stuff...
I'll try to call your attention to it.
And second thing I have to do is tell everybody that they must donate huge amounts of money to BCTV.
Empty the coffers.
Anything will do. What?
Go get the cookie jar.
Yeah, go get your cookie jar. Anything will do. Any donation we will be grateful for, and the minimum you can make is $1, but that isn't because I said $1, it's because the
software
PayPal
can't handle
won't handle
99
less than
cents.
$1. Go to BrattleboroTV.org. Go down to the bottom of the screen where it says support local broadcasting. Click on that, and you can donate to Brattleboro BCTV, which is a tax-deductible donation, and make that donation. And below the place where you can do that with PayPal or credit card, and below that you can put in a note that says this is for Energy Week.
That would help.
We're still a few dollars shy of the amount that we need. I don't think it's as much as $100, but it's a few dollars. It might be, actually I think it's $115 maybe, but I might be wrong. Anyway, we go. We're ready to cruise through this. Oh, one thing that we should mention.
Yeah.
It's not in the news today. It's not in the news for this week, but it will be Energy Week next week. In fact, it will be our first article that we talk about, is the fact that Greta Thunberg was named Person of the Year by Time Magazine.
I got a message to that effect.
Yep.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah, and by the way, the person who was the second in line for Person of the Year was none other than President Donald Trump. Probably because...
Who's in the news today?
He was in the news today talking about Greta Thunberg, according to Donald Trump, needs anger management.
So he's a psychiatrist now, huh?
Maybe he's talked to a psychiatrist and learned a term. You know, I mean, I don't want to go there. Okay.
We won't touch
February, I'm sorry, December, I'm reading Thursday and it's turning into my mind into February. December 5th, we have a picture. Tom wanted to put the picture up, and now we can put it up. And this is an article from Science Magazine. It's a picture of a hot day in Paris.
I wonder how you knew it was Paris.
You know, it didn't say in the article. I just guessed. It's either Paris or they've got a very large model of the Eiffel Tower.
That could be, yeah.
You know,
it looks like the Taj Mahal in the back.
When they put that up,
Yeah.
local people complained bitterly about how ugly it was.
Huh.
I'm not kidding. They wanted to have it torn down as soon as possible, and then a year or so later, they decided maybe they should leave it.
Well, I wouldn't say it's ugly. I wouldn't say it's beautiful, but it certainly is interesting.
I'll agree with you
They
on the
look like they're
interesting
having
part.
fun there, though. I'll tell you
They
that.
do.
Yeah.
Okay, Science Magazine. What do you have for title, Tom?
Even a 50-year-old climate model correctly predicted, quote, global warming.
Climate change doubters like to claim that computer simulations conducted decades ago didn't accurately predict current warming. Actually, they like to claim that the current models don't either. Now, the most sweeping evaluation of these older models, some half a century old, shows that most of them were actually accurate.
Well, a little takeaway from here, because they explain what they did.
Yeah.
Researchers using supercomputers running trillions of calculations per second
Yeah.
compared annual average surface temperatures across the globe to the surface temperatures that they predicted back between 1970 and 2001.
Yeah.
And they got them right on the money.
They were
For
there.
most forecasts, there was no statistically significant difference.
Yeah. For most of them.
For most of them.
You know, trillions of calculations per second. We used to, when I was working with computers, we had a thing called a gigaflop, or gigaflops. The S, it sounds like it's plural, but the S is per second. Flops is floating point operations per second, flops. Gigaflops is a billion floating.
So there's only one flops.
There's only one flops. Trillions, we're talking about teraflops here.
Yeah.
And back in the day, you know, getting a gigaflops was expensive. When I started in the industry, we were proud about our 20 megaflops, and these people are like a million times as fast as that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's move along here.
Very good idea. Renewables Now. We've got an item from them, and this is I think really interesting.
Nevada Energy wins approval for 1.9 gigawatts of solar, 590 megawatts of energy storage in Nevada. Well, where else would it be?
Well, yeah, but I mean, how many people?
If it's the Nevada Energy Company.
How many people are there in Nevada? I mean, this is
not a lot.
This is not a state
Not much,
with a huge population.
not many more than Vermont.
This is really big when you compare it to the Hornsdale Power Reserve in South Australia. This is a really big battery they're talking about. Probably the biggest. It may be the biggest.
600 megawatts, 590 of storage.
Nevada utility NV Energy said it has approval from the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada for 1.19 gigawatts of new solar projects and 590 megawatts of energy storage in Nevada. The project,
that's significant.
Yeah, will help NV Energy double its renewable energy capacity. This is big.
It's scheduled to be operational by January 2024.
You know,
it's coming, folks.
Okay, we're talking about an amount of energy that you'd get out of a nuclear power plant as
that's about the size
capacity.
of Yankee.
And it's being put up in 4 years or 5 years, as opposed to a nuclear power plant, which in some cases has taken 40 years. But anyway.
Well, I've seen some pictures of some of these energy storage things, and they're basically a whole bunch of trailer trucks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Even the one here in Vermont, that's what it looks like.
Yep. Okay, we have another picture. This was a picture I found interesting in the articles from the Weather Channel.
Doesn't look like I wanted to be in that town, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
That's Gurneville, California. And the headline is 40 years of atmospheric river storms left a staggering price tag in the western U.S.
Flooding from what are called atmospheric rivers caused about $43 billion in damage in western states over a period of 40 years. A study from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and Scripps Institution of Oceanography found climate change is making this flooding worse. You know,
That's no surprise.
Hardly a surprise. This picture is a picture of a town that is basically on a riverbank in the mountains. And
Okay.
if you have any flooding, it's going to be any large amount of water and rainfall, you're going to have serious flooding in a place like that.
Looks like they succeeded.
They succeeded. Okay.
Well, I wanted to know what atmospheric rivers were because I never heard that term before.
Yeah.
And it's easy enough. They're long, thin plumes of moisture,
Yep.
capable of carrying tremendous amounts of water.
Yep.
A strong atmospheric river can carry an amount of water vapor equivalent to as much as 15 times the average flow of liquid water in the Mississippi. So
This is
they're
a
right when
lot
they're
of
talking
water.
about rivers.
You know where there's an atmospheric river almost every winter? It's very predictable. Is coming off Lake Erie in western New York State, and it's the reason why Buffalo has
Gets so much snow. Yeah,
but if
exactly.
you track the snowfall from those snows, you get long, thin
Do you?
places
Yeah,
of
yep,
heavy
yep.
snowfall, which could wind up ending in Ithaca or some such place.
Well, there's a link there which I followed. It's called
Yeah.
A Blessing and a Curse, Atmospheric Rivers Explained.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
And there's a video in there of a cliff collapsing,
oh,
resulting in basically tidal waves, but they're nowhere near the ocean.
yeah.
It's a little town like this.
Yeah.
There's a cliff collapsing and 20 feet wall of water goes roaming across the prairie.
Wow. Okay,
Well,
we are up to Friday, December 6th, and we have an item from Renewables Now.
Vineyard Wind's Connecticut offshore wind tender with 804 megawatts bid.
Connecticut announced it selected Vineyard Wind LLC's 840 megawatt Park City Wind project as the winner in a major solicitation for offshore wind projects. It had, quote, a price lower than any other public announced offshore wind project in North America, end quote.
Yeah, I saw the numbers and it didn't mean anything to me, but
Yeah.
this is a biggie.
Well, 804 megawatts, and there's a couple of things about 804 megawatts here.
Why not 800?
Well, I don't know. But the 804 megawatts, you can compare this with nuclear, and it's
Sure you can.
comparable to Vermont Yankee. It is a higher nameplate capacity than Vermont Yankee, but because Vermont Yankee had a capacity factor of about 90%, and this will have a capacity factor of about 40%, it's actually going to produce a little less
Electricity.
electricity. One thing that people don't realize is that wind turbines, particularly offshore wind turbines, actually they don't run and then stop, and then run and then stop. They
No,
run
they vary.
close to 98% of the time. They're actually producing electricity. The difference.
But a different amount of electricity.
That's right. The difference between wind turbines and solar is either running or it's not,
Yeah,
usually.
yeah.
I mean, in a cloudy day, it's running, but it's going to produce less electricity. But wind turbines, by contrast, almost always run. But
Yep.
they have
Run slow, run
widely
fast.
varying
Yep.
amounts. Okay, this is an interesting picture
Yeah,
we've
we
got
got a
here.
picture here. I've
This
seen
is
this
one of the-
picture before.
I'm sure you have. I had never seen it, and I thought, that is so bizarre. This particular article had...
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
I mean,
This article had better pictures from the point of view of explaining the article than this. But look at this. This is the peak of Mount Everest. And I remember...
There's 300 people there.
Yeah, and these people are queued up. You know, that is a line of people. They look like they're lined up to get into a
A movie or something.
movie theater or something. You know, it's crazy. There
Well,
they
there's
are.
only about a 3-week window in a year where the weather permits climbing of Mount Everest.
Wow.
Okay, and this is in that period of time.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot of money. You
Yeah.
can't just walk up there and do it. You got to hire guides. You know, they got it all
You
sold
mean you
up.
can't just tag along behind the person in front of you? Well, truth is, they don't go up the mountain like that. That's just what happens at the peak.
Well, it's interesting because I read this article, and the guy the article was about took that picture.
Yes.
Okay, so he was up there, and
He
he's
was-
been up there many
Well,
times.
let's talk about the article here. This
As
is
he-
from CNN.
It's as he scaled the world's 14 highest peaks. Nepalese climber is shocked by climate change effects.
Nepalese climber Nirmal Nims Purja smashed the record for taking the shortest time to climb all 14 of the world's 8,000 plus meter high mountains.
That's about 26,000 feet.
Yeah, this guy, yeah. But his expeditions made him acutely aware of the environmental changes the world is undergoing. And he went, what was it, 4 years, Tom? He went to one place and then he went back to it 4 years later and found that it was like a different environment.
Yeah, he talks about that. I mean, he mentions the first time he was there, they were able to use snow for drinking water.
That's right.
And the second time he went there, they had to carry the drinking
They had
water
to
up.
carry their water
Yeah.
up. And that's because the glaciers are melting. This is ice that's been there for thousands of years, and it's melting.
Well, it's interesting when you look at that picture to realize that before 1953, no one had ever been up there.
I remember when Sir Edmund Hillary, wasn't that his
Yeah,
name?
it was Hillary and Tenzing Norgay.
Okay.
That was his
I
Sherpa.
remember when they got up there, and we were just saying, "Wow, how many people will go up there?" Well, maybe 50 years from now, some other person will go up there. Well, 50 years later, or 65 years later, it's turned into a busy operation.
Well, this guy Purja
Yeah.
broke 7 world records in his feat of climbing all
Right.
of these 8,000 meter,
He did that in a very short period of time. That was the
189 days.
189 days.
And the previous record was something like 7 years.
Yeah, he did in 6 months. He did what had never been done before in less than
Just
7
under
years.
8 years.
Yeah.
That's what I say here. Yep.
Okay, is
Let's
that
move
all?
along here.
CNN brought us this next one.
EPA watchdog says White House budget office blocked part of its investigation into a controversial trucks rule.
The EPA Inspector General report concluded that the EPA and possibly the Budget Office bypassed key steps when it rushed through Pruitt's proposal to lighten regulations on some heavy-duty trucks using older, less efficient engines.
Well, there's a 2-minute video here that's totally unrelated to this article.
Well, that's one of the things CNN does, unfortunately.
But it's interesting nevertheless.
Yes.
And what they're basically saying that the heavy-duty engines often outlast the truck bodies,
Yes,
so they use them over again.
yes.
But it seems like just the idea of using a second-hand engine to save money isn't what they're after. They're trying to get away from some of these restrictions.
Well, this is what we've got here, Tom. We've got this thing, which is, the free market, they call it, where what they want to do is get rid of every regulation in sight.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, it would be great. Yeah, let's get rid of a regulation that says you're not allowed to steal from people.
Yeah.
Then what happens? Well, if you're going to have a free market, it's got to be regulated. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because without regulation, it's going to be regulated by the biggest shark in the tank.
That's a good way of looking at it. There is still regulation, whether the
Yeah.
government does it or whether the biggest shark in the tank does
do you
it.
want the government to regulate the market, or do you want Coke Industries to regulate the market? Well, unfortunately, what we've got now is the government operating on behalf of
Coke
big
Industries.
businesses. Yeah. Okay.
We got another picture coming up
We
here.
do indeed, and we're up to December 7th, which was Saturday.
And that's an interesting
I
picture.
find that an interesting picture. I thought you would too.
Well, it looks like it's a big truck, a big ship, picking up a whole bunch of BMWs to bring them to America.
Is that what it is, actually? I don't know
Well-
where that ship's going.
Huh? Well, we don't know where it's going, but
Yeah. Okay, what do you got for a title?
BMW Group joins, quote, Getting to Zero Coalition. And they're the first car maker to do so.
This is
Explain what's going on here.
Yeah,
This is
I'll read
interesting.
this. This is from Clean Technica. BMW Group joined the Getting to Zero coalition ahead of the UN Climate Change Conference in Madrid. By 2030, BMW Group will be offering 25 electrified models. Its factories in Europe have been powered by 100% green electricity since 2017. These people are going to be 100% electric in everything they do.
Well, that's what the article's about. They're saying that the BMW Group is very serious about carbon emissions.
Yeah.
And they're looking everywhere throughout their chain.
We're going to be seeing a nice article about the effects that has, will have, or predicted to have on companies like BMW that have done that, and companies that are not doing it and resisting.
I can't wait.
Okay.
Well, we got this one isn't a very good one coming up. Australia bushfires north of Sydney are too big to put out.
This is scary.
Whoa.
Okay, this
Scary.
is from the BBC. A mega blaze raging across a 60-kilometer front, which is 37 miles, north of the Australian city of Sydney, cannot currently be put out, fire officials have warned. This is a blaze that's 37 miles wide.
Yeah. And it's only an hour's drive from Sydney. I'd be scared if I lived in Sydney.
This could be a serious, well, it is a serious problem, but I don't know how worried they are that it'll get to Sydney. Severity of blazes so early in the fire season has caused alarm and prompted calls for greater action to tackle climate change. Okay, so what's wrong here? We've got a country that is parched because of climate change.
Yeah.
And what are they trying to do? Well, at the top level, they're trying to prevent any changes that will deal with climate change.
Well, there's a couple of interesting videos in this link, the BBC. The 1-inch video of the fire itself, and that's scary. 1 inch, 1 minute.
It's appalling. It's
And there's
absolutely
another
appalling.
video which shows the fire advancing on the firefighters, and that's scary too.
Just what's 37 miles from Brattleboro?
Dummerston?
No. I think 37 miles south is past. It's probably Deerfield.
Massachusetts.
It would probably be Deerfield, which would
around
mean
there.
you just think about a fire that stretches from Brattleboro to Deerfield.
Yeah, you got to look at it some way. Yeah.
You know, and when you start really looking at some of these things, you know, this is like the Peshtigo fire in the United States that hit Wisconsin the same day the Chicago fire did. These fires get so big, they do what's called, I think it's called spotting, where embers get picked up.
They jump ahead.
Fall 5 miles away. Yeah. And in the Peshtigo fire, they had things picked up that fell quite a few miles away, and they believe that that's the reason why there were fires on both sides of the Dore Peninsula. Because they believe the Peshtigo fire may have jumped the Dore Peninsula, which is 10 miles or more across. And there are people who believe that they not only jumped the Dore Peninsula, they may have jumped Lake Michigan. Because there was a fire the same day in Michigan. This is a situation that's kind of similar in nature.
Yeah, it seems to be.
Okay.
We got another one coming up here. We got a picture.
We do indeed. This is from
picture up there.
Counterpunch.
This is an interesting picture. If you look carefully, there's a person in that picture. It looks like a surveying pole, whatever they call it.
It reminds me, you know what it reminds me of? There was a, who was that Japanese filmmaker? Kurosawa made a film called Ran, which was patterned after King Lear. And in the end, one of the characters who was blind was standing on a cliff with a stick. And it was in the end of this thing, everybody died. You know, it was really awful. And that guy standing there on the edge of that piece of collapsing permafrost reminds me a little bit of that.
That would all be solid.
That would have
But
been,
it's melting.
it would have been ice, and you can see that the stuff is falling away. Okay, we should move on this. What do you got for a title?
Permafrost hits a grim threshold.
And this is grim, according to research based on field observations conducted from 2003 to 2017. A large-scale carbon emission shift has occurred in the Arctic.
No, we talked about that.
We have, but this makes it really explicit. The region had been a carbon sink, but the entire Arctic now emits more carbon than it absorbs. And this can only be described as worse than bad news. So the Arctic had been collecting carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
I got some numbers on that.
Yeah.
It showed 1.66 gigatons of CO2
Right.
emitted annually
Oh.
versus 1.03 gigatons absorbed.
I didn't realize that it was that big,
Well,
the absorption. But, this is, and a lot of this is methane, which is really bad.
Which is bad.
Yeah.
Governmental austerity measures are destroying proactive climate policies. Okay, global governments plan to produce 120% more fossil fuels by 2030.
Tom,
that can't happen.
I have become convinced that to get past what we're confronted with in this country, we're going to have a president of the United States who declares martial law and just says,
Stop burning fuel.
Yeah, can't do that anymore. Okay, we're up to Sunday, December 8th.
Soil, the secret weapon in a fight against climate change. This is an interesting story.
It is,
It's a good
and
one.
actually this is a really good story. It's the flip side of that last story. This is from EchoWatch. Battered by effects of climate change, agriculture is also an important, in fact, a necessary partner in fighting it. The science is clear. We cannot stay beneath the most dangerous climate thresholds without sequestering a significant amount of carbon in our soils. And we can do this.
This is a good article, and the article mentions 5 ways that soils can sequester crop. Soil.
Right.
I'll mention them because
Yeah,
they're
go
quick. This is
Put
based
yourself
on,
up. Huh? Put yourself up.
Well, I'll do that. There we go. Hey, hi there, guys. This is based upon equivalent to the emissions of 64 coal-fired power plants that
Okay.
this study is talking about.
Okay.
The first one is incentives for cover crops.
Yes.
Okay, and cover crops are crops planted between growing seasons to build soil health.
Yeah.
Okay, and everybody's not doing this. So they're going to try and incentivize it. Second one is also a sort of a incentivizing carbon as a new agricultural product by which they mean farmers will get paid for the carbon they sequester. Makes sense. Third one is regenerative agriculture, which we've talked about.
Yes, we have.
Okay, working with nature to build the overall health of the system.
Right.
The fourth one is supporting organic farmers, because organic agriculture by design reduces greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
And the fifth one is reducing food waste, which includes increased composting of food scraps.
Right.
Which,
All
like
of
in
this-
London, they're composting tea leaves.
Yeah. Yeah. All of this makes perfect sense. You know what it reminds me of, Tom? When I was in 3rd or 4th grade, I read a book which was titled George Washington Carver.
Okay.
And, I didn't know anything about him. It was just a book that was on the shelf. I had to read a book for my classwork. I was really pleased when my son read the same book
Okay.
under the same circumstances. And George Washington Carver was a guy who lived at a time when Southern agriculture was in deep trouble because they had been growing cotton and corn and tobacco
He was
primarily.
a peanut guy, wasn't he?
Yeah. And they were growing this stuff, and they would deplete the soil. They would build a big, the mansion and the plantation and the whole thing. And of course, before the Civil War and during the Civil War, there were slaves. And they would deplete the soil and then sell the plantation to somebody who just wanted a place to live and move west, which was a lot of the people who lived in Georgia moved to Alabama, to Mississippi,
Arkansas.
Louisiana, so forth. And George Washington Carver was the person who figured out that you plant one of these depleting crops and then you plant a crop the next year that consists of peanuts. Well, it could have been peas or beans or
legumes.
a lot of things, but things that restore the soil. So this reminds me of that same kind of thing where scientists are looking at the soil and saying, we can use this for restoration purposes. And
He was black, wasn't he?
he was black, and he had a very faulty education, and he was probably, I think, one of the most brilliant scientists of the century, 19th century. He was one of the people who was really important in building up the Tuskegee Institute. He and who was the other one?
I can't think.
I can't think either. I'm bad with names.
But I do remember the name. I certainly know he
Yeah.
was an important personage. Well, we got a picture coming up here,
We do indeed, and there it is.
and the picture is
A
of
fracking well
wells.
in Texas, actually 2 fracking wells. If you have one of these suddenly appear in your yard, you know you've got a problem.
Well, with fracking, they use water or sometimes steam
For injecting.
to
yeah.
inject into the area to fracture it.
Yes.
And this is one of the water wells, 2 of the water wells.
This is from Clean Technica.
Okay, let's get rid of the picture there.
You're
we'll
just
put us up
replacing an
here.
ugly picture of infrastructure with an ugly picture of me.
Well, now it's an ugly picture of both of us.
Both of us. That's better.
California ends new fracking, pending results of a scientific study. This is an interesting article.
We had actually seen this.
We touched base on
We
this before.
touched base on this when they were considering doing this. Despite plenty of petrodollars sloshing around California's capital in Sacramento, Governor Gavin Newsom halted approvals on new hydraulic fracking in the state until the projects can be reviewed by an independent panel of scientists at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. And this is infuriating. He's saying we shouldn't do this until we know what the science is. And
how strange.
how strange. They've been fracking. They've been doing all this fracking. It has been causing real problems for a lot of people, including Chevron, which just lost $10 billion because of fracking.
Did they?
Yeah, they said that it was the fracking caused low oil and gas prices, and so they're losing money.
I'll be darned.
That was in the news today. All of this fracking, which has done all of this stuff, reduced the price of oil, and they
they're
never
losing money.
bothered looking to see what the science was.
Wow.
They just well, they said, okay, you can drill through this rock. The rock is impermeable. You don't have to worry about it. You go down to a layer underneath. You fracture that. You get the oil and gas out, and no problems. And,
I got a quote from the governor.
yeah.
This marks the turning of the tide against the oil industry, which has been allowed to drill at will in our state for more than 150 years.
Yes.
Okay? These are necessary steps to strengthen oversight of oil and gas extraction as we phase out our dependence on fossil fuels
Right.
and focus on clean energy sources. Well, he's on the money.
Yeah, I believe he is.
News organizations have reported that oil and gas interests, this is an interesting number, contributed $170 million to California campaigns since 2001.
It's a lot of money.
Money talks.
We're
Money
looking.
talks.
We're looking for donations of $1 or more.
Well, we'll take $170 million.
If you have $170 million and you want to give it to me and Tom,
We'll take it.
We'll take
We
it.
won't argue.
yeah,
Well, a new one coming up from CBS in Boston.
okay.
New England grid operator says the region has enough power for this winter, despite a station closing.
ISO New England says that it will be the first winter without the Pilgrim nuclear power station in Massachusetts, but officials say this is the first one for ISO New England.
Yes.
I believe so. But officials say the reactor's retirement coincided with some solar and wind projects and several dual energy power plants coming online. So they're not worried about it.
The ISO operator is basically saying we should have adequate energy in the event of extreme cold.
Unless something goes
Unless something
really
goes
badly wrong. Yeah. Okay. we're up to Monday, December 9th, and we have a picture of a solar array, which is right there. Isn't that pretty?
A little sideline on the back. New England uses less electricity in the winter than it does in the summer.
Yeah, a lot of places do, but New England is kind of cold in the winter.
We got a picture coming
We have a
up here,
picture, and the
if I
picture's
can
all
find it.
available for you. By the way, I just got, the apartment that I'm in has a propane heater and
Yeah.
a propane stove. And I stopped using the propane for heat.
Okay.
And my last delivery of propane was priced so that even though I'm paying for cow power, which means my electricity is all renewably
renewable.
sourced, but I'm paying extra for it, I'm still operating cheaper than if I were dependent on propane for heat.
Are you really?
Yes.
So you're heating the place electrically?
I'm heating the place electrically
Mm-hmm.
for less money than it would cost if I were doing it for...
Not supposed to work that way.
No, it's not. But you know, when I've cut my propane consumption down to about a gallon a week.
Not just for cooking.
No, yeah, that's just for cooking. That's all I do. So basically what's happened is the propane company says, if you're going to do that, we're going to charge you extra.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that stinks.
Doesn't it? They've actually charged me upwards of $5 a gallon.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was, you know, when I got that bill for $5 a gallon, I said, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, and by the way, a large part of that is the fact that I set the thermostat rather low.
Uh-huh. I keep mine nice and warm, so.
All right. Well, my apartment is in the winter almost never above 55.
Is it really?
Yeah. And when it's cold out, it's about 50 degrees. It's been down into the 40s.
Well,
but
there's a
I
nice
find that
picture
if you
there.
get used to it, you can deal with it. Okay, this is from Queen
What do they
Technica.
call those white flowers there? Because they're all
Those
over
are
the
Queen
place.
Anne's lace.
Queen Anne's
They're
lace.
also
Yeah, yeah.
called wild carrots.
Are they?
Yeah, because they're wild carrots. That's exactly what they are. And if you pull one of those things up by the root and you smell
You get a little carrot, huh?
you can smell this wonderful carrot aroma.
But it
And
doesn't
if
look
you-
like a carrot.
No, it's white. And if you try eating it, you'll discover what it's like to eat carrot-flavored rubber.
Well, the article says Alliance for Clean Energy New York pushes for a carbon fee on thermal generating stations.
Yeah,
Oh,
New York State
there's
has...
some people aren't going to like that.
No. New York State has an energy standard calling for 70% of its electricity to come from renewable sources by 2030. But the Alliance for Clean Energy New York says the state is unlikely to meet that goal without a fee on carbon emissions.
Here's a quote from the Alliance. It's just plain nuts to allow industry to pollute the environment and pay nothing to clean up their mess. That makes sense.
Yeah, you don't let people throw trash in your backyard.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And if somebody does, you get the authorities and you say that person's got to clean this up or pay to have it cleaned up. And what they've been doing is they've been polluting our rivers, our streams, our lakes, our air, killing people.
That's called privatize the profits and socialize the risks.
Now it is no longer necessary to kill people.
Amazing.
Amazing, because we've got ways of dealing with things that don't kill people.
This isn't really going to isn't going to kill the people's pocketbooks either.
No, it's not.
A carbon fee would raise utility rates slightly during the first 3 years, but then result in lower rates in the following 10 years.
Isn't that
I'm
lovely?
not sure how that works, but
Well, basically what happens is we're talking about this technology curve. As the costs of these things, as we put more wind power in, as we put
It gets
more solar,
cheaper.
it gets
Yep,
cheaper.
yep.
So 3 years from now, we're going to be at break even, and why not? Okay,
okay, we got one from the BBC here.
we do indeed.
It says polluting firms will be hit by climate policies. Well, that's good. They
Yep,
should
this
be.
is a worldwide thing. Carbon-intensive firms are likely to lose 43% of their value
This is kind of an interesting
due to
article.
policies designed to combat climate change, according to a report commissioned by the UN-backed Principles for Responsible Investment. Meanwhile, the most progressive companies like BMW will see an uplift of 33% in their value.
So it's a two-edged sword, isn't it?
It sure is.
Yeah.
And you know, this is when every once in a while I read an article that I find infuriating, and this is one of them. And why is it infuriating? Look, we're in a world that is changing, And we've got leadership in Washington, D.C., which I will point out is not Republican and it's not conservative. We've got leadership in Washington, D.C., which is saying, we want to stick with the old way of doing things. We want coal, we want oil. We don't want to go to new technology. We want to go stick with this obsolete stuff and obsolescent stuff.
And we're going to charge you to do it.
Yeah, and what is it doing? Well, why is it that we don't see many electric-powered buses around anywhere in the United States? There are a few places where they're starting to appear.
They're coming.
When most buses made worldwide, or at least the majority, which is
Worldwide. That means China.
That means China. All right, so what has Donald Trump done here? He has said, we're going to stick with the old ways of doing things because that benefits the old companies.
Yeah.
And it benefits workers who have got jobs in the old companies. I dig coal. Well, maybe he should dig coal. But nevertheless...
Well, money talks. In the long run, money talks. And coal isn't competitive anymore.
We're losing our competitive edge now because Donald Trump says, put America first.
Yeah.
And the put America first means something a little different from what most conservative Republicans would hope it would mean. And the result of that is we are losing out on the biggest business opportunity in the history of mankind because Donald Trump believes that climate change is a Chinese hoax.
Well, he's getting absolutely nowhere with his attempts to revive coal. Well, money talks.
I don't
economics.
know whether there's more coal miners or fewer than when he went into office. I know that there was a little bit of a jump.
Well, we noticed some companies have gone bankrupt already.
Yeah,
more than
Navajo
several.
generating station shut down, and that was like 600 miners right there.
That was a huge generating station, really.
And it was.
Well, there's some takeaways here.
Go ahead.
Car makers with the swiftest transition to electric vehicles, like BMW, for instance, are projected to double in value, while those slow to move to EVs will see their value fall, as gas and diesel models must be phased out faster for climate targets to be met.
And as I said, I think we're getting to a point where we have delayed work so long that it may be that some president of the United States is going to have to say, I'm sorry, no more cars, at least not with internal combustion engines.
That may come. Well, coal companies are going to fall in value by 44%, and we're seeing that happen
I'm sorry,
already.
I don't believe it. Coal companies are going to fall by 100%.
By more than that.
Yeah.
The 10 biggest firms in oil and gas could lose 31% of current value.
Yes.
Okay, only 5 of the world's most valuable companies are impacted by at least 10% in either direction. Interesting article.
A very interesting article. Okay, we've got a picture of biogas.
Nice picture.
Now, this is an interesting picture because it just looks like a farm, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like something, if you drove by that, would you look at that and say, well, that's an industrial complex?
Well, it is a farm, and it is an industrial complex.
You'd say
what you're looking at there is a biogas
more
system.
stuff in Iowa. There it is. Okay, this is from ET Energy World, which, by the way, is
so it's corn, but it's not corn for cows. It's corn to make biogas.
Okay.
That's what it looks like to me.
This is from ET Energy World, which is in India, and of course we start with
That's
India.
a good art. That's a good source. We
ET Energy World. Pretty good. This is Economic Times. Economic Times of India. Really competent.
It's a good newspaper.
Newspaper, and I'm really pleased that ET Energy World is allowing me to put up links that, when people click on them, actually get the article, because some places don't.
Well, India can generate 18,000 megawatts of renewable energy using biomass. The article's about India, but...
Yep. 18,000 megawatts is 18 gigawatts. And
every time you hear gig,
when you hear that giga, you know it's big.
Bigawatts.
India, unless you're talking about gigajoules. Gigajoules are not big.
Gigajoules are small.
India can generate about 18,000 megawatts of renewable energy using biomass and an additional 7,000 to 8,000 megawatts using bagasse cogeneration in sugar mills, according to the country's Power and Renewable Energy Minister, R.K. Singh.
Well, bagasse is what's left of the sugar plant after you take the sugar juice out.
That's right.
And it's amazing when you think of it, how much sugar and corn resemble each other.
Oh, they're part of the same family.
They
They're
must
both
be.
grass.
Yeah, they must
They're
be.
both related to bamboo.
Yeah.
And they're both related to ordinary grass.
Grass, right.
And if you look at bamboo and you look at ordinary grass when it's got extremely tall, you see, yeah, there's a similarity there. You know, we had bamboo growing in our yard in Devonshire.
Did you really?
Yeah. We had bamboo growing in the yard, and there was
Now, where in England is Devonshire?
southwest.
Southwest.
Yeah.
So it's down.
It's
heading
next to
toward
Cornwall.
Cornwall, yeah.
Next to Cornwall.
Yeah.
And other things that you see in that part of the world, interestingly enough, are native palm trees, and not so native, but they're not exactly invasive because they don't move inland. Scorpions.
And cactus, of course.
And what?
You see cactus down there.
I didn't know about cactus. I never saw
There's
cactus.
cactus growing in Ireland. There's not a lot of it, but you know.
Is it native or is it brought in?
I don't know.
Okay.
I know I've seen it.
Well-
Well, holy cow, what's this cactus doing here? you know?
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
broadleaf cactus. What do they call that? It's not like a saguaro. It's a low cactus with
Are you
broad leaves.
talking about what is that? Prickly pear?
Could be, yeah,
Yeah.
probably is.
We are up to Tuesday, December 10th, with an article from Scientific American, and here we're talking once more, although I don't think we actually say it about atmospheric rivers.
It's the same thing though.
Yeah.
Newly identified jet stream pattern could imperil global food supplies.
During the
We've-
summer,
we've just been talking about.
yeah,
the same
it's
thing,
basically
really.
it's basically looking at the same thing from a different point of view and getting more information out of it. During the summer of 2018, highly amplified jet stream patterns remained stuck in place for unusually long periods of time, producing disastrous weather patterns. The patterns are believed to be 20 times more likely to happen because of climate change.
Scary.
It is, and this is the kind of pattern that produces the drought in one place and flooding in another place, not all that many miles
Not
away.
very far apart.
Yeah.
Well, the 2018 tally of billion dollar weather-related disasters was the fourth highest total for any year since 1990. So, a follow-up study found that stuck jet stream patterns like seen in 2018 are prone to bringing, just as you said, simultaneous heat waves and associated drought conditions to multiple important grain-producing
Right.
regions of the world. These waves can cause reduced harvests in several important breadbaskets simultaneously.
That is an issue because it means that everybody's without
Everybody's
food.
going to starve.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's move along.
That
We've got
was
another
Scientific
picture coming
American,
up
and now
here.
we have Daily Energy Insider giving us a very boring picture of a rooftop solar array.
Well, it's in Michigan. What do
Yeah,
you
what-
expect? Huh?
Okay.
Renewable energy installations in Michigan are up by 57% in 2018.
Well, that's interesting.
That's a big number.
It's a big number. The annual report from the Michigan Public Service Commission shows continued growth of distributed energy in the state with 57% growth in installations for 2018. The year saw 1,952 renewable energy installations with a combined capacity of 13,910 kilowatts, which is 13 megawatts, which means that the state had these distributed things equivalent to not quite 3 times as much as Brattleboro has at its old town dump.
Well, they're talking about that, not Brattleboro, but that brought the total capacity for such installations to nearly 45 megawatts.
Yeah.
Okay, Michigan-wide.
Right.
Under the state's net metering program.
Now, this is interesting because this is not utility scale installations.
No, this is what we're looking
distributed.
at in the picture there.
And this is what we're talking about is that little bit of the energy that's being produced on rooftop arrays. And when you consider that building, I have no idea what that building is, but if you consider that building, that's a lot of electricity that's going to be coming out of that. And by the way, the fact that the array is on both sides of the roof means that part of it is facing east and part of it is facing west.
Yeah, the building's facing north-south, so
Yeah,
it gets sun all day long.
You're not going to have as good alignment as you would if it were a roof twice as big facing south, but you're going to get power out of that most of the day on each
Exactly.
side, and all day when you consider both sides.
Well, they got a program which Vermont also has, which allows in Michigan, it allows customers to generate their own electricity to reduce electric bills.
Yes.
In Vermont, you can sell that power.
Yes.
We'll talk about that
Yes, we will.
coming up.
Okay.
Got another picture coming
We
up here.
are up to Wednesday, December 11th. And this picture I really have to explain, but let's talk about the...
Well, that's Homer, Alaska,
that's
for
the
one thing.
town hall, City Hall of Homer, Alaska. And this is from Clean Technica.
93 megawatt hour Tesla Megapack coming to Alaska to save customers cash.
A new 46.5 megawatt, 93 megawatt hour Tesla Megapack system installed in Alaska by Homer Electric Association will be used to offset electricity that otherwise would come from a peaker plant. The new battery pack will be installed at the Soldotna power plant. And you know, when I saw Homer, I said I want to get a picture of Homer because they didn't have any pictures in this article that I liked, so I wanted to find a picture. And I found this, and it's hard to get a picture of Homer that isn't extremely short and wide because it's all kind of on the ocean. And
It's on the water, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a woman that lived in Brattleboro for about 5 or 6 years
From-
from Homer.
from Homer.
And she went back up to Homer, guess what to do? Become a fisherwoman.
Well,
She bought a fishing
Sarah
boat.
Palin was a fishing woman.
Was she really?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she actually got her hand caught between two boats.
Oh, that hurts.
And it broke a whole bunch of bones, and she was back working the next day.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a woman who knows what it's like to be a fisherwoman. Anyway, the thing about this picture is that when I thought about this, and I thought, Homer, how many people live in Homer? And it turns out it's a few,
17 and a half.
it's a few more than 5,000. But the Homer Electric system actually operates through a bunch of communities that are in that region.
It's a co-op, isn't
It's
it?
a co-op, and it really covers the whole, what do they call it?
It's a
not
peninsula, isn't it?
It's a peninsula, but it's not a county, it's a borough. It's the whole borough, which is a county-sized thing, although some of the big boroughs in Alaska are the size of large states. And they have about 50,000 people who they supply power to. So
So it's a significant entity.
this would be like not Brattleboro or half of Brattleboro, because that's about how big Homer is, but it would be all of Windham County and then some.
Uh-huh.
You know, so but this is huge. This is a huge system for an organization of that size.
Well, let's move a little bit closer to home here.
Yeah, with an article from Clean Technica.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Green Mountain Power introduces a plan that allows homeowners to sell solar power direct to businesses.
Green Mountain Power is creating a platform that will allow residential customers with rooftop solar systems, or solar systems in the yards for that matter, to sell their electricity they generate directly to businesses for the first time in America. This is the first time in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The program is currently limited in scope. They are limiting the number of businesses, and
Well, they're still trying it out.
this is a pilot project. They're trying this out to see if it will work. And they're already, you know, I see today, and we may talk about this at the end of the week, but I don't think so.
It's kind of interesting because it allows a business
Yeah.
to purchase energy credits
Right.
from a customer, from another GMP customer.
Right.
And this is the interesting part of it. Buyers and sellers connect via smartphone
Right.
without involving the utility company directly.
Although the utility actually
They're watching. They're
charges
watching.
a fee for
yeah.
this.
Yeah, they're charging 5%.
It's not a huge fee. It's 5%. But there are environmentalists who are objecting to this already,
Why?
because GMP did not say we will only allow new systems to do this.
Huh?
Huh? A system that was put up 10 years ago
Can't do it?
can do it.
Can do it.
Can do
Oh,
it.
okay.
And the people who are objecting to it are saying, we need to put in more renewable energy.
Okay, so losing that incentive.
They're saying that it's a disincentive, but honestly, I don't think it's a disincentive at all. This is a pilot project. GMP has to find out whether it will work.
Absolutely.
You know, I mean, we're only talking about 200 customers here, so I don't see it as anything that would be objectionable in any way.
Well, if it's working, it will be perpetuated.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like a good idea. I got extra power coming in, more than I can use.
That's right.
And you could use some,
That's
Mr.
right.
Businessman.
That's right.
You buy it from me.
That's right. And the only thing that is in the way between us is two things, one of which is transmission lines, which GMP
Which are
happens
there
to
already.
own, and the other one is some way of keeping track of how much power is transferred,
Which is just
which is what they're doing.
a portable computer to do it.
A cell phone in this
Cell
case.
phone. Well, yeah, it's done by cell phone, as
Yeah.
we said. Well, we got another picture
We
coming
do.
up here.
And this is a picture of, we've talked about Harbor Air a bunch of times.
Yeah, we have.
And, you know, it was in the past, it was always a promise that they were going to have, their planes are all going to be made electric. They have a plane that was being assembled that had an electric motor. Well, there's
now
the
we got
plane.
one that's taken off.
It's taken off, and there was a picture the next day of this plane landing. This is from BBC, and the next day the plane landing was on CNN.
Looks like a lot of people are witnessing.
Oh, look
this.
at that crowd! That is a lot of people standing along the water watching that plane take off.
It must have made the newspapers.
I'll bet it did. Okay, it certainly made our show.
World's first fully electric commercial flight takes off.
And you know, I objected to that title because it sounds different than it actually was to me. An all-electric powered seaplane has taken flight for a test flight in Vancouver. It is the first flight of what the operators say is the aviation industry's, quote, first all-electric commercial fleet, end quote. The 6-passenger Harbor Air aircraft is fitted with a Magnix electric motor system. Now, the thing that bothered me about this is it sounds like it's the first commercial aircraft ever to take off powered by electricity. And in fact, it's a test flight, not a commercial flight. And it's a test flight for the world's first all-electric fleet.
Right.
So,
Well, it kind of makes sense there because these are all short hop.
oh yeah,
jumps,
yeah.
you know?
From the point of view of Harbor Air, I think Harbor Air has something over 40 aircraft. They're converting all of them to all-electric, and I believe all of them are seaplanes.
I think so.
And you
and
know,
the people around there all live on islands. You know, you can't drive
a lot
to them.
of people living on islands, and there's a lot of people who live along rivers, and it's kind of like Norway. You know, in Norway they're converting to electric aircraft for their short runs because they have a lot of short runs. It's, you know, it's a matter of you can't build a bridge across the fjord because there's ships going through and it costs too much money. So what do? Well, you either take a ferry boat across the fjord or you drive around it. But if you want to go to the next fjord north and you're on the south side of a fjord,
You got to go all the way.
you got to
heck
go
around
all
it.
the way around. So you might have to drive, 50 miles to get to some place that's 5 miles away.
Yeah.
So, aircraft jumping across these fjords and over the mountains and things like that makes sense. There are fjords in the area around Seattle and Vancouver. So,
That's what you'd call them, sure.
yeah. So it's something that makes sense,
Well, Harbor Air hopes to electrify its entire fleet by 2022.
which is not
Not
all
very
that
far
away.
in the future.
40 some odd aircraft.
Well, I think that's the last article we have.
It is. It's a good picture, but I'm going to put that up. Have a perfectly lovely week is what it says, in case anybody
Okay.
doesn't want to read it. Just too lazy to look. So thank you for coming to Energy Week number 349, and we both hope that you'll be back for the next one.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.